All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the inaugural episode of the Practice Room podcast. I'm your host, Cody Thurber, and I'm joined today by our first ever guest, music arranger, composer, and band clinician, Robert Chedville Jr., also known as Bobby Chedville. Bobby, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Hello, everybody. For people who are on video, if you're audio, just keep listening. You'll be good. So glad to be here today. Mr. Thurber invited me to do this on his first inaugural episode, as he has already explained. So I'm very happy to be here. What are we doing today, Mr. Thurber?
All right, so we're going to just have a little discussion and you're going to tell your musical story, explain your journey from your beginnings with music and how you've gotten to where you are now. If you wouldn't mind though, give us a little introduction to who you are as a person, what you do in the music world, and yeah, take it away from there, Bobby.
All right. So introduction, that's gonna take forever, but I'll give you the little rundown. So I knew that music was my thing when I first took band in middle school. It was kind of a weird. I'll give you the little rundown of the whole story. I used to have a friend who I really need to get in touch with again, but he encouraged me to be in band, but it was a thing that I was on the fence about at the time of signing up. So originally, I actually went into sixth grade without band. And then about a month in, I talked to my parents. I was like, Mom, I think I want to do band. And they were like, Why didn't you tell me this before? I was like, I did. And so we were going back and forth whether or not I wanted to do band. But eventually I did get in band about a month in. They changed my schedule to fit in the band program. So I was able to do that. And let me tell you, that's probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I just, the amount of joy I got when I first walked into the band room, especially being at my junior high. It had just opened about a year before this happened, so everything was brand new, and it was just so exhilarating. It was like too many emotions going all at once for one 11-year-old kid at the time. And it was something else. And not only thinking at the time that it was something that I would pursue, but it would actually be the thing in my life that I would want to do for the rest of my life. So basically, I signed up for band. I just chose trumpet as the instrument. I don't know why exactly. I just kind of ran with it and been doing it ever since. So I think it may have just been because I've always liked melodies. And since the trumpet is a very melodic instrument and very pronounced instrument, I just kind of wanted to just try that out. And as I'll prove in a minute, I actually got pretty good at it. So I went through junior high band and then into high school band. Did the marching program at my local high school in Denham Springs, and it was something that I actually well enjoyed. I especially like doing what we call honor band programs. I know you are very familiar with that, Cody. So if you want to indulge our audience real quick about what honor band is, you're more than welcome to real quick.
Yeah, so honor band will you could have different formats with honor band. In Louisiana, we have parish honor bands. We have our LMEA districts have all district honor bands. We have all state, which all district honor bands encompass musicians from all the schools in one LMEA district. We have all state honor band, which encompasses the most skilled musicians across the state of Louisiana. And then a number of our colleges and universities in Louisiana host honor bands where they invite high school students to their campuses to work with clinicians and get a taste of what college band can be like. Um, Bobby, I do want to backtrack for just a moment. So I know you talked about how your junior high program was only a couple years old when you first came into it.
One to be specific, but yeah.
1 year old, 1 year old. Yeah, what junior high did you attend? What city is that in? Tell us a little about the the program's beginnings.
Oh yeah, so I completely neglected to tell you what the name of the school was. The school is named Jubin Park with a C instead of a K, and it had a conjunct elementary school that was just down the street from it that I actually went to the year before on their first year. So I was at the elementary school for the first year and then the junior high for their second year. It was just right around that time, 2010, 11, I think was the school year. Um, so they're called Jubin Park. They had just started everything me as a student, it seemed like everything was fine. Like I didn't notice anything being very disorganized. I mean, this is me as an 11-year-old kid. I don't really notice details like that as much, but you do pick up on some things even at that age. And I didn't really notice anything that was way out of line or anything that had tr caught me off guard as maybe this was a mistake going into band because things are just all over the place. No, never thought that at all. Everything was pretty well structured. I was very inviting. Band director was very, very professional and nice. Even as an 11-year-old kid, I thought that, which is a big deal. Being in junior high, you know how some junior high kids can be. They just think, oh, it's just not at this place. They chose well first. And so the program was off to a really good start at the time. And I'm glad that I joined him when I did because as I'll explain a little bit later, there was some turns and rough moments, but eventually me and the program prevailed through all that. So it was definitely a good start, and it was something very well memorable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then so Jubin Park, Livingston Parish. So that's in District 4. No, District 4 is a pretty stacked district with LMEA. A lot of good band programs, whole lot of good musicians in District 4. Um,
Yes.
Talk us through kind of how your transition to high school was and give us an overview into your high school band experience.
Okay. So I won't lie, I'll give you a little bit more than what you're asking. In eighth grade at Jubin, this is kind of stupid, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was kind of like getting to the popular kids over there. I didn't do it too much, but I kind of got a little cocky. So
Hey, what trumpet
when
player doesn't?
that's true, good point,
Yeah, there you
because
go. There you go.
there there is definitely some ego in that. But anyway, so I was, thinking that was all that in eighth grade. I was, with the popular kids. I was pretty much, a well-balanced human being. And then when I transferred over to high school, my first experience of high school was band camp. It wasn't the first day of school because band camp, as any band kid would know, happens in the summertime, more or less in July, maybe June, depending on your program, but it's before school starts. So this was the first experience that I had during high school, and my goodness, was it way different than eighth grade because now I'm not the top dog anymore. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole again. So it was quite a different cultural change, especially being that it was marching band, and I'd never done marching band before. Um, Quick side note, I think that they were trying to do more marching stuff in junior high once I was in high school. But when I was in junior high, we didn't do anything marching wise. It was all, fundamental concert band stuff. So ninth grade, before ninth grade, that July before ninth grade, I think it was 2014 for me specifically. Uh, I'm like, what's marching? I don't know what that is. So they're like, wait, you want me to play my instrument and move at the same time? How am I going to do that? I don't know. But they taught us pretty well. They had us fundamentals. They had us do sectionals with other like instruments. Usually it was woodwinds and then brass and percussion, stuff like that. So it was an easy transition for the most part. I mean, like I said, there were cultural changes being that it was from middle school to high school and that there's people who are older than me. But also in Denham Springs, there's only one high school. And at the time, this high school was separated between freshmen being all on the old side, which the old side was also the middle school back in the day, and then across the street was everybody else. So there was also a different cultural shift just from being at Denham Springs, where it was like, oh, you're a freshman, you belong over there. Why are you, well, you're not over here on the cool side? It's not how it actually was, but that was basically what people were thinking in their heads. So there was that on top of everything with coming from eighth grade and from junior high. So it was a bit of a struggle mentally to try and get used to everything over there. But the band directors and the support staff we had throughout band camp really did a good job as best as they possibly can to make sure that that was a seamless transition for us all. And I couldn't thank them enough. And honestly, I look back at it speaking on this podcast now, I didn't thank them enough. And well, if any of you happen to be listening to this podcast and you remember me from 2014, I would just like to say thank you, especially if I was being an annoying little pest. Apologies, but it's just being a teenager, and I'm sure you guys know that. So thank you. You guys did great.
Yeah. Who are those directors?
So our head director was Mr. Chad Campbell, and our assistant director, new at the time, was Ms. Carly Gladys. No, she's now known as Miss Carly McGregor.
Nice, nice. And so at this point, you're in the high school band, you're playing trumpet. Kind of take us uh through your high school career, in particular, the back end of your high school career. Because I know some your junior year wasn't a normal school year, was
Far from it.
it?
So picking off where I left off. So ninth grade, pretty much that year was pretty self-standing once I got used to everything. Um, just being on the other side of the street was just a little odd, both in the academic world and band world, especially being there was only one band room. It wasn't like there were two band rooms. So I actually had to cross the street every single day to go to the high school site where the band room was. So, but the rest of that year was fine. Um, Everybody hyped up what's known as the Louisiana Marching Band Showcase. You know what that is. So that was very daunting, but once we did it,
R.I.P.
everything was fine. Yes, RIP, unfortunately. But soon to be back, right?
To be determined.
To be determined. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we'll see. But anyways, so moving on to the sophomore year, I'm now across the street with the seniors and juniors, and things were probably looking up. Still, it was kind of like being freshman 2.0 because now I'm on the other side of the campus. Everything's different again. And the only thing that isn't different is really band because I'd already done it for the first year. Same directors and everything. So everything was fine. Um, I think that year was also pretty self-sustaining. I think the only thing I would add to that is in the spring we went to Disney as a band trip and we played as a little workshop as a big band from everybody who wanted to go. We just did one giant, massive band. Like it wasn't like a wind ensemble size or anything. It was like a big band, like basically marching band, but everybody was sitting down. And it was very cool because we got to play. I think it was Tarzan. We played the score from Tarzan, but arranged for our band specifically. And then they actually put it to the film, and then they spliced and did all the music editing to make it look as professional as they could. And they sent us a copy in both digital and DVD form to the directors, and we played that at our band banquet at the end of that year. So that was very, very fun.
Oh, that's
Not to
awesome.
mention we were in Disney, so for people
Yeah.
who hadn't been, I'd already been like 4 or 5 times before, so it wasn't as eye opener for me, but it was still enjoyable to be there. But for others, they had never been, so it was a really big deal, and it was it was quite a memory to look back upon, and it was a lot of people's favorite moment in band, to be honest. Not mine. I'll get to that later, but uh, it was quite fun. Now, junior year. So this is where things take a toll. So junior year happens, band camp goes fine. School year starts, everything's just fine. For those of you who live in Louisiana right now, or who have lived in Louisiana during this time period, you probably are aware of a natural disaster called the Great Flood of 2016. Well, that happened to be my junior year of high school. And oh boy, it could not have been worse. I lied. it can be worse. It could always be worse, but it was pretty bad. So it happens. My house gets flooded. Thankfully, I live in a two-story house, so everything didn't get lost, but the school itself was pretty much gone. So it was a big adjustment for everybody. We had to share with neighboring rival Live Oak to get school done in terms of just trying to get everything done while what am I trying to say? It's trying to renovate the high school again.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we were there for the second semester, but it took the entire first semester for all the necessary work to be done to get the school back into operation. And as you can probably tell with us sharing a school with a rival, how that probably went. So it was very difficult for both of us on the Denham side and the Live Oak side, even though their school was fine. They still had a weird schedule to adjust to and stuff like that. But not even to mention, that's just the academic side. The band part, oh, was even more traumatizing. Nah, not traumatizing. It was more just a lot to process. Um, a lot of times we would have to what did we have to do? And you were with me on this. We had to
You,
go to the school for the football games, Denham High, that is. But everything else was at Live Oak. So like all of our equipment was at Live Oak. Everything was at Live Oak except the football game. So we were basically doing an away game for every home game, and away games were away games. So every game was an away game except for the time it was at Live Oak.
yeah. So the old Yellow Jacket Stadium in Denham Springs was one of the first buildings to be operational after the 2016 flood. I know briefly during the flood, it was actually used as a rescue center for people whose homes had flooded. Um, so
Correct.
so every game day we would have to bus one town over from Watson to Denham Springs for the games, and um, I know it was pretty difficult, but and huge shout out to Mr. Figgles and everybody at Live Oak for making the best of that with us that year, and and really supporting us with that. But hey, we got through that year, and then your senior year of high school. Did y'all have any interesting trips? Any big performances?
Oh boy, did we. So this was definitely my favorite year of the 4 years that I had in high school. It is kind of like cliche to say that because everybody's last year is like, oh, it's my senior year. I get to be the big boss and, graduate at the end of the year and whatever. But for me, especially, and for everybody in my graduating class and band could probably agree to this because not only did we do everything that we normally do, we went to showcase at the end of marching band season. We had a concert program, performances, and whatever. We had the opportunity to do two trips away out of state. Um, the first of which being to the Big Apple itself in New York City. So to give you some context here, basically it was an invite for the Baldwin Wallace Conservatory that we had gotten from that conservatory up there in the Northeast region, and they invited us to play at Carnegie Hall in Stern Auditorium to honor, I think it was something about Bernstein, I believe.
Yeah,
Uh, so we got to play pieces by our newly found director the year before, Dr. Andrew Hunter, who had chosen specifically in Bernstein's work West Side Story. So we got to play that in Carnegie Hall, and why was that an experience? We also got to play a couple other pieces from what I can remember. Prelude number one from Shostakovich, I want to say. I can't remember the opus number, but it was a prelude by Shostakovich, and my was that an opener. I still have the sheet music in my filing cabinet, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. We played. Sorry, say.
Shostakovich is one of those composers that can just give you chills. So I can imagine opening y'all's concert set in Carnegie Hall with Shostakovich. I can imagine a few notes in you're playing, and it's like I'm really in Carnegie Hall playing this. Wow.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
It was a life moment. And especially the next piece I'll talk about real fast here, Rest by Frank DeKelly. I have a own personal life moment here, which I still remember vividly. Um, for those of you who don't know, that piece is based off of a choral work by DeKelly, and he made a band arrangement of it. And there's this lovely, lovely section at the end in G major. And for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, both the choral or the band arrangement, recommend going to listen to that because it's so lovely. It's gorgeous. And the moment I had was at this end section, G major. Trumpets didn't play at all. So I had the opportunity to take in everything because I didn't have to focus on my part. There's this lovely baritone solo that Tekeli arranged, and the player who played it, Mr. Carl Brandon, shout out if you're ever watching this. Um, he played it so lovely, such a nice vibrato, and the reverb auditorium of Stern, it was so lovely. And the clarinets, and I think it was the oboe who plays, they played in such a fine-tuned timbre that it actually made me cry on stage. And other people saw that I cried and it spread. So it
Nice.
was
Nice.
it was very, very once in a lifetime moment because we got to share music together and it showed in the emotion and the emotion spread. So it was quite something. And there were a couple other pieces. I think we played about five pieces, I want to say, that I can't remember the name of, but um, Rest in particular was probably the thing I remember the most.
Hey, Louisiana born composer at that.
That is correct.
Yes.
So that was New York City. Of course, we got to do the tourism stuff over there too. We got to see other landmarks like the Statue of Liberty and the World Trade Center and the Rockefeller Center and all the like. But it was a really fun trip, and we got to visit in February too, so it was decently cold. Um, so moving forward in that year, March happens and it's springtime. And like my sophomore year, we had the opportunity to go to Orlando again, but this time we did not go to Disney. This time we actually went to Busch Gardens in Tampa, and then also SeaWorld Orlando, and then Universal as well. So we got another trip completely free of, there just to literally have fun. And we did for about 4 days. So that was fun. I had a lot of fun being with the group that I was with. We had a blast. We took a lot of photos. We had a lot of on-ride photos we bought of us being stupid. It was great. Um, so it was definitely something that I liked a lot. And then yeah, pretty much the rest of that year was pretty much a close. I graduated, moved on.
That sounds like a memorable end to a great high school career. So,
Sure
obvious.
was.
Oh yes, oh yes. Great day to be a yellow jacket, as former principal Kelly Jones would say. Great day to be a yellow jacket.
That's right.
Um, Obviously you continued your music education after high school. Um, what factors went into picking the right college for you?
So for me personally, I grew up from my parents saying that you don't want student loans, you don't want debt, you don't want debt, you don't want to have to owe money. So the biggest thing that I thought of was, okay, I'm going to try and get a local college so I don't have to pay for room and board because tuition is already expensive as it is. So I was like, we're not going out of state and we're not going too far away from home to where I have to live somewhere else. I'm not saying that I couldn't live on my own. I didn't want to have to deal with all of that later in life. So came upon four, more three, but the fourth one was like if everything else failed kind of thing. So the four were LSU, SOU or Southeastern, Southern, and UL. UL is the one that I would be like, okay, last resort since it's in Lafayette, which is over an hour away. I was like, if I can get the others first, then I'd rather that.
Yeah.
So LSU is my number one priority, and then SLU right behind it, and Southern behind it. So I went ahead and applied to all four of them, sent my ACT score to all four of them at the same time. And I got into LSU. It was actually not that hard. I don't know their process of how they choose degree paths now, but at my time, you had to have at least an ACT score of 20, I believe. I was at 23, so I was good. And then you had to do some other stuff that I can't remember. But I got into LSU, and I was really excited, and I was ready to get into the music stuff because the degree, another reason I forgot to mention that I chose LSU was that they actually had a degree program I was interested in because I wasn't interested in being a teacher. I never really had the likes of being a teacher. So I was like, okay, something with music, something with obviously, what am I trying to say here? Something where I like to be creative. I've noticed when I've grown up, I like to be creative playing games or whatever. Um, and actually, backtracking a little bit, I forgot to mention something about my senior year of high school. There was a new AP class being offered that I took called AP Music Theory. And long story short, basically, I realized I was really good at music theory without knowing that going in. So I was very proud of myself for that. So I knew that music was the thing for me once I had gotten that drilled into my brain. So I knew that it had to be something musically related that I would like and be creative. Well, what else is there in music that you can be creative other than writing your own music? So that's what I went into basically. At first, I went into their program called Experimental Music and Digital Media, or EMDM for short. It was a program based on using computers to create your own music and perform live with computers, which sounds bonkers, but it's possible. So I went into that and I went through all 4 years of that. But on top of that, my second year doing that, I actually added a different degree path on top as the composition degree, because they actually have two different pathways for each of them. And a lot of classes overlapped, so that's kind of why I did it as well. But the composition degree focused more on the concert hall performance of acoustic ensembles, acoustic solo performances, pretty much anything that you would think of in a classical performance, whether it be band works that I've already been playing for a couple years, or stuff like woodwind quintet or brass quintet, piano solo, it doesn't matter. So that was what the composition side did. And on the experimental music and digital media side, it was all about music technology, basically. So I kind of got like a best of both worlds kind of thing. And I was pretty much only paying the tuition of one degree path. So I did myself a favor, put a big pat on the back because I got a lot of information in 4 years' time when it really could have taken me more than that and had to pay almost double.
That's awesome. So it really sounds like coming out of high school that you already knew that, hey, music was the thing that you want to do in life, and
Hmm.
and that's solely what you pursued with for college. Um, we're going to take a short break in just a couple minutes. Before we do that, though, I do want to ask you, what advice would you give any current high school musicians that have started looking at colleges? What advice would you offer for them in picking the right college to continue their music education?
For me, my first go-to would be reach out to people because I struggle with that personally because I'm just a natural born introvert. And so I didn't really go into the program really knowing anybody. So I was kind of blindsided by it all, and I didn't really know what I was doing until probably about 4 or 5 months into the whole thing. So if you get to reach out to people, you can ask them specific questions that maybe like you and I may not know about, and you can get an idea even before you apply to the program. Is this really for me? I know that a lot of universities are good at doing stuff like this, whether it be just a simple email or if it's an actual go-to event, like LSU has what's known as Kickoff LSU, where this exact thing is meant for. Uh, but do your best to make sure that it is actually the thing that you wanted to do before you commit to it. And your parents will love you too for it because they're the ones paying your tuition.
Yeah, there
So,
you go. There you go.
so that's what I would suggest. Um, Another thing would be is it takes time. So the sooner that you have an idea of what you want to do, the better you're off because you can have the time to do the research. And by research, that doesn't just mean look on the Google and search up whatever they have and think about it. You have to go experience it. So in our case, we are a music program at LSU. We're going to go to concerts. We're going to go to meet and greets. We're going to go to recitals. We're going to do stuff like that. I mean, this applies to anything else outside of music as well. If you
Yeah.
truly have any passion for something, you have to go out and experience it.
Say that part again. Say that last sentence again. High schoolers, listen up.
If you really want to get anything worth out of anything, you have to go experience it.
Yes, yes, yes. No, couldn't have said it better myself, Bobby. No, getting experience in anything you have interest in is the only way you will truly know if that's something that's meant for you. Very well said. We're going to take a short break here on the Practice Room podcast. And please stay with us through the break, and we will return with Mr. Chedville momentarily. Thank you.
See y'all soon.
And welcome back to episode 1 of the Practice Room podcast with Cody Thurber. So, joined today by our guest on episode 1, our very first guest, uh, Louisiana based composer, arranger, and clinician, Robert Chedville Jr. Bobby, thanks for being on here again. Let's pick back up where we left off. So, we had just gotten into talking about your college career a little. Take us through some of your course load while at LSU. What did you have to learn to get to the point that you're at now?
Yeah, gotcha. So, as I mentioned before the break, I'd actually taken on 2 degree paths in the span of the time span of one, basically, in a 4 year degree. So I was basically doing kind of double the work. So basically, the way LSU had it structured was is that you had your music core courses, you had your um, I forget what they called it exactly, but it was basically the courses that are more tutored towards your concentration. And then you had, of course, your general education classes and the ensembles, I think was the other category. Just breaking it down. So your gen eds are over there. Your ensembles are pretty self-explanatory as well. I mean, we had a variety to choose from, I'll say. You had your ensembles for wind band. So you had symphonic band, symphonic winds, and then wind ensemble. You also had the jazz band. You had choir. You had what else am I missing?
They have
Um,
orchestra.
you have orchestra. Yep. Laptop orchestra, which is in par with the EMDM degree, which I'll get to in a minute. Um, I think there's a couple others that are kind of minuscule, but they all qualify for the ensemble credit. So we had a lot to choose from in the ensemble department, which I was quite grateful of. In case I got tired of one thing, I could go and do another if I so chose. Um, the music core courses. So those basically every music major went through them. Um, it was necessary to learn from basic scratch what fundamentals of music were in case you already didn't know them. Basically, they were music history, music theory, group piano, and oral skills. So we had to take 4 semesters worth of each of those. So you would take group piano one, music theory one, and oral skills one in the first semester that you were there. Um, Side note, if you pass the music theory examination. So at the beginning, we took a music theory exam to see what music theory you knew. And if you passed the exam, you got into music theory one. If you didn't, you got put into what was called, I think, I don't remember actually. It was called like pre-theory. Okay, yeah, yeah. So, as I mentioned before, I took AP Music Theory my last year of high school, so I kind of got that one in the bag. So I didn't worry about that much. So I got into Music Theory one, and then went through the whole chain all the way into my fourth semester. Same with group piano and oral skills as well. Although those didn't have a test towards them, you were basically. Actually, I think maybe group piano did. I don't remember actually. I
Ooh,
wasn't good enough, so I had to start at the beginning. But I think, yeah, now that I think about it, I think there was a test that you could take, but I opted out of it because I knew I wasn't going to pass. So I started at the beginning with Group Piano 1. But the Theory 1, as I mentioned, I already done in high school, so I got into Theory 1 and skipped pre-theory. Oral skills were paired with music theory, so if you were in pre-theory, you weren't in oral skills 1 and pre-theory. You were basically just in pre-theory by itself. And then once you got to Music Theory 1 the next year, you would be getting R skills 2. Music history is the odd one out. Basically, there was no test for that since history is conceptual based. Everyone did it there. It was recommended to do it the third year based on the degree pass that we had, but you could take it as long as you have room for it in any year that you wanted, basically, as long as you had to pass the first course. Oh, what am I thinking of? The first class. Musician and Society. There we go. That
yes.
was a music dis history course basically, but it was like an intro course and it was meant for the first years. But you had to pass that one to get to the actual music theory later on. Um, so that's music core. And then the courses that you take that's dedicated towards your major, of course, being that it's dedicated towards each major, it's different for everybody. So I was composition and EMDM, but you, Cody, you were a music education major, so our courses were way different. So my courses were the studio class, which everyone had a studio class, but it was with a different professor based on the concentration that you were in. So I studied under Dr. Jesse Allison and Mara Gibson at LSU. Mara Gibson, she was, or she still is actually the composition head department. And then Dr. Allison is the EMDM department. And I learned a lot from both of them. So I was very grateful to have both of them under my wing during the undergraduate part of the whole shebang. But you had the studio class, and you, Cody, to name a different example, you had um, was it Dr. B you call
Dr.
her?
B.
Yeah, and she was the trombone studio professor, correct?
As she was. She was very thankful for my time with Dr. B. Learned a lot from her.
Gotcha. Okay. And then also to go a little further on your portfolio, you also had I don't know if it's studio class, but you're a music education major, so you had the teaching side of stuff too, right?
Yeah, and we had different professors for different music ed courses we would take, as I'm sure it was for for the different courses in your concentration area we that you would take.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So every major was different based. And so, as you can tell between the two of us, we had very different experiences when it came to that type of stuff. And me in particular, to go a little bit further, we had to take other classes called computer music, orchestration. What else am I missing? I'm blanking on some of these. We also had to take like there was like a specific class for a specific instrument. It was like orchestration, but like spread out. I forgot what it was. But besides the point, uh, it goes into depth. That's basically where the fun stuff is, as you call it. Um,
I love the fun stuff.
and that's just the coursework, like not even to mention the extracurricular stuff or the stuff that you do outside of the classroom. Because when you get to the later years, especially like the harder classes that are deemed the 30 and 40,000 level, uh, those definitely took a lot of time outside of the classroom because for my senior project, it was to do an entire recital of my music that I wrote and organize the entire thing for a grade. That was basically the culmination of what I'd done for me 3 years, but you're supposed to do it for 4 years. Uh, worth of music, basically. And so I was supposed to gather the players, run the rehearsals, make sure the sheet music was distributed properly, make sure that everything was organized for the recital, that I was in conjunction with the recital hall management, the recording, getting it with the sound engineer, Mr. Bill Kelly. He did the sound engineering at the time that we were there, making sure that that went through just fine. Stuff like that that piles up and then it makes you get a real good experience of what it's actually like out there. So it's definitely a good thing to have, but it can be a lot, especially if it's been your first time like me.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you definitely took a wide variety of classes, but it also sounds like there were a lot of ways you could get involved on the performance aspect with things between being in the different ensembles you had and then putting on the recital where you're organizing the entire thing. And definitely seems like a good learning experience for you. Um, so outside of your ensembles, outside of your recital, were there any like music organizations that you could get involved and further connect with other student musicians at your school?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I didn't do a whole lot just because I already had a lot on my plate with the two majors that I was doing. But I definitely were aware of a lot. I know that there were definitely some quintets that had formed from the music education and performance majors. Since they're all good friends, they're in studio classes together, they form a little quintet. And I actually used that to my advantage to get them on my recital to play my music because they already know each other. They can communicate better as musicians because they're already friends in, normal life.
Yeah,
And they can expedite that rehearsal time a lot better so that way the performance is better too. So there's little ensembles like that that just form just out of habit basically. There's other ensembles that form themselves just out of the sheer fun of wanting to play music together. I mean, I don't really know any off the top of my head by name, but I know that there were definitely some out there. I would just find like some people just playing right outside the school of music just because they felt like it. Or even a better example at LSU, Free Speech Alley. I mean, there were people over there a lot doing the same thing because it's Free Speech Alley. They can do anything that they want to. Uh, there were performances outside of LSU's campus. I know a good spot was the Goodwood Library. I know that a lot of our composers who were in LSU at the same time as I did, they had performances over there at the Goodwood Library. So it was quite a fun experience for them, I would assume, because they got to one experience a different venue, but also get to meet new people as well and connect with them that way. I think even one of our composers, Jeremy Edwards, he had
yeah,
his recital at an art museum in downtown Baton Rouge. And I went to that and wow, that was bizarre because again, I was in a different venue, but the way he used the venue was he had different musicians spread out throughout the museum just playing whatever they were told to play, but they were alone. But they were being viewed like an art exhibit because they were in a museum. So it wasn't like a classical performance where we stand in a dark room and watch the stage. It was more interactive by having people walk around at their own leisure and their own pace, just viewing musicians, hearing musicians while they're looking at artwork on the wall.
yeah,
So that was formed probably because he had to do it for his recital, and but he didn't have to do that. He could have done just a traditional performance like I did. There would have been nothing to that. But he decided to do it a little bit different. So that was something that was out of his own creativity that formed. And so I can imagine all those people were probably better friends after that experience. Uh, there's probably so many more things out there that I don't even know of in terms of ensembles that I could be here all night trying to figure them all out. But needless to say, there's definitely opportunity out there. It's just, and this is what I told this podcast earlier, you gotta experience things, and this is a good way to do that.
yes. And I'll make a quick note that that recital by Dr. Jeremy Edwards was phenomenal. Uh, and Dr. Jeremy Edwards got his doctorate from Louisiana State University. He is currently a professor at McNeese State University in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Um, Phenomenal music educator, even better person, Jeremy Edwards. Um, yeah, so what about any non-performance based organizations? Any social organizations based around music?
Yeah, there's a couple. For me, the ones I got involved with, the first one wasn't big at our institution, but it was something. It was called the Society of Composers Incorporated. It was, as it sounds, a society of composers meeting. It was like a once a month thing that we would used to share new music that we found or showcase our music as composers or something like that. It kind of got cut off with COVID because it was just starting to form around the time, and then it just didn't pick back up after. But it was a thing, and it
Yeah.
still does exist. It's just not as active as before. So there was that on the composer side, but the more active thing that I was a part of was the fraternity chapter called Kappa Kappa Psi,
Yeah.
fraternity Beta Gamma chapter.
Are you with us, Bobby?
I am. Did I lose you?
Yeah, but we're back. We don't quit in the practice room. um,
Nah.
yeah,
What was
so
the last thing?
so you were saying that you were a part of the Beta Gamma chapter of Kappa Kappa Psi?
Yes. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the fraternity chapter that services the LSU Department of Bands and School of Music, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So as the title states, we are a service chapter that was founded in 1919, correct?
Nationally in 19
Nationally, that is true. What year was
LSU
our chapter formed?
at LSU in the late 1940s.
Okay. So we were formed in the 40s at LSU specifically for service for more of the Department of Bands, but we branch out to the School of Music as well. And so we offer pretty much any services that are needed in both departments. Um, Kind of back me up on this, Cody, but like, how
Yeah.
was it like?
Yeah, so it was really cool getting to help out the different performing groups throughout the Department of Bands and through the School of Music at LSU. Um, whether we were doing a percussion move the morning of a concert, whether we were putting together new music stands for one of the band halls, or whether we were feeding dinner to symphonic band after their one of their dress rehearsals for a concert. Is this really it always felt really special to get to help out the performing groups and put our colleagues in a position to have success.
Yeah, and I would definitely echo that. One thing I'll add to that, and I'll keep driving this home, but it's a great way to meet people and
Yes, yes, yes.
get friends because college is one thing is to get you a degree, but it's also another thing, and that is to have some friends and have a life. Uh, that might sound a little weird coming out, but it's not all just academics at college. You gotta go experience stuff, and a good way to do that is to be a part of a fraternity chapter, and that's what we were. So it was a great way to branch myself out, specifically being an introvert, into that sort of wings, that helping hands rather of people that are willing to grow with me as a human. So
Yeah.
it was an eye-opening experience, especially during COVID, because it was challenging for everybody. So, and we were all, patient with each other. We were very supportive of each other as best as we can, even through the tough times like that. It was a good experience all around.
Yeah, and Kappa Psi definitely gave all of us a good group of friends that we knew were true friends that we could rely upon in college, and it all in addition to giving us a way to help out the School of Music and the Department of Bands. So all you high school students listening to this, Get involved, get involved, get involved. So
You won't regret it.
you will not. You'll regret it if you don't get involved in things.
The right answer.
Yes. So, Mr. Shedville, so post graduation, what has the music world looked like for you? So, like specifically, so like any works you have published, any performances that ensembles have done for your works, or any like clinics that you've gone and performed or taught at, I should say.
Right. So after graduation, it did slow down quite a lot just because there wasn't the need to do it because I didn't get graded for it anymore. Um, and being thrown out into the real world after graduation in the music world, it is kind of a little weird to find employment that isn't a teacher. So for me, I was kind of like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? So I figured it out on the employment side, so I'm okay there. But for music purposes, since I was not doing coursework anymore, I was definitely on the more light side when it comes to stuff for that type of industry, we'll say. But I did do some things. For example, graduated in 2022 for reference. In 2023, I had written a piece of music called The Lost Colony for concert band. It's a intermediate level, it's like 3.5, maybe 3 level. And I actually had your group, Cody, perform it for a world premiere, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I'm the band director at Natchitoches Central High School, Natchitoches, Louisiana. And you approached me about this time last year about world premiering The Lost Colony. And I mean, that's something that was special to me as your friend getting to give that piece its world premiere. And that's something that was really special to our musicians who had never played an original composition before, never played a world premiere piece in that sense. And I'll still have students that were in the band last year that will bring that up with me from time to time.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going for. I mean, this goes with all music, but you gotta make it memorable. And so it seems like I achieved that goal, and I'm very glad to hear that even to this day that I have gotten people, kids that will have that not stuck in their mind, but made a memory about it in their mind, and hopefully it sticks with them forever about it. So, yeah, for any of you band directors out there, you can look it up on JW Pepper. It's out there. You can go get it, 45 bucks. The Lost Colony by Robert Chedville Jr.
in the
Go play
des-
it.
in the description of this podcast episode, we will provide a link to Mr. Shedville's website along with his JW Pepper web store link and any other useful links for Mr. Shedville. Um, about any clinics? Have you ever done any? Have you ever taught any clinics?
A few. Ironically, they were all at your place. But I did do a couple
And
clinics
not
at
not not all of them. Not all of them.
I can't be for sure. I'm blanking. There's one out there that wasn't at your place. Can't remember.
Putting Mr. Shedville on the spot here. Natchitoches Junior
Oh,
High.
oh
Natchitoches
wait,
Junior
yeah.
High. Yeah, yeah.
I got it now. Same area, just different place. Yeah. So Mr. Cody's right. I did do a clinic at Natchitoches Junior High. Is that the one?
Natchitoches Junior High.
Yeah. So the same day I went to his high school, I went to the junior high that's right up the road there in Natchitoches, and I did a dumbed down version of what I told the high school students. But basically, what I did is I made it fun for them because I don't like lecturing people; it's boring. So I make it more interactive. What I did
What
is
did
I
you teach?
say that again.
What did you teach them? Like what did you show them in the
I
clinic?
taught them the art of composition, but through the minds of a teenager or young, what do you call it, younger than teenagers, 11 to 12-year-olds, junior high people.
Mhm.
So instead of, talking to them like the theory wise, oh, this is a chord, this is interval, this is circle of fifths, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to stick to them. I, what I did instead is I said, okay, we're going to make a song together, guys. What do you like? And I asked a couple people to raise their hand. Oh, I like this. Or what do you think I should add? I asked some of them that. They're like, oh, I want some symbols. And like, okay. So I would take my microphone, this exact microphone that I'm using right now, actually. I use that to record some of them playing. Sometimes we would put in, and I won't get too technical, but we would use virtual instruments to make the sounds that they were kind of talking about. And we made a song together. Was it good? That's up to you to decide, but it was still fun. That's what the point was. It was to kind of get them to not think transactionally, but to think more creatively. And so that's what I drove home about, more on the high school side than the junior high side, but still did the same thing.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left here, Mr. Shedville. Do you have any projects that you're working on right now that you'd like to give a preview to our audience or speak
Oh,
on
always. Uh,
projects?
I feel like I have like 40 projects going at once. But there's a couple that I'm working on more than others, and I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about one of them. So, a little bit of backstory about one that I actually was working on last night. It's called Mog Corral. Kind of weird name. What's a Mog? You probably ask. Well, it's it's a creature. It's a mythical creature that is made up. I didn't make it. What it is, it's a creature that's made in a mod for Minecraft. Minecraft is a game in which you can do a lot of different things. I won't go into that tangent, but
I'm
basically,
sure most of these high schoolers are very familiar with Minecraft.
yeah. One of my favorite things is I like making music that represents an area, kind of like atmospheric ambient music. And that's what I use the digital music that I learned in college for, basically. So Mog Chorale is a chorale that is supposed to be playing when Mogs are present in the game. So I'm trying to work out a lot of different kinks at the moment. Having some mixing wisdom come to me recently. I've been taking a couple mixing courses to make it sound better. So that's what I've been doing mostly. I'm also learning like our orchestral stuff, but that's like coursework. That's not like work that I'm doing on my own. So it's mostly just mod chorale. There's a couple other things that don't have names yet that are just more ideas. Um, I'm working slowly but surely on a short film for a bigger project. I won't spoil too much, but
Okay.
it's only like a minute or two worth, and it's going to be like a big swelling orchestral piece, but it doesn't have a name yet. So those are mainly what I'm doing is between the coursework, mock chorale, and then that orchestral thing. That's really the only three things that I'm mainly working on. Of course, there's again a lot of different unfinished projects in my arsenal, but those are the three that I touch the most.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we can't wait to see how those come out. And you have any parting words that you'd like as we wrap up here today on episode one of the Practice Room podcast? Any
Yes.
any parting words, advice you'd like to give anybody that may be looking to follow in your footsteps?
Yes, and this is something I kind of always say when it comes to advice in general is everybody always says their advice and they say don't give up or always keep going forward with it. And they're not wrong, not saying that they are, but at the same time, advice is not going to work for everybody, at least their advice. So the advice I said earlier may not work for you, but that doesn't mean that you should give up. Still research. That's basically what I'm getting at is my advice may work for some, but not for others. For those of you who don't have the advice work, research more, find other advice. Maybe Cody has some advice that works for you better than me. Just depends on how you are. So if you find something and you get frustrated because the advice given to you didn't work and you can't figure it out on your own, research a little bit more. Maybe there's some other people out there that are having similar issues, and maybe there's some other people giving advice in which it will work. You never know.
Awesome. That's Bobby Shedville, episode 1 of the Practice Room podcast. Bobby, thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate it, Cody. Can't wait to be back on here.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for episode 1 of the Practice Room podcast, where we bring music educators, musicians, performers, clinicians, composers, stories to life and into the world. Hey, thank you for tuning in to episode 1. Follow us back for our second episode of our 2-episode premiere on the Practice Room podcast. Thank you, and
Take
keep
care.
practicing. Thank you for tuning in to episode 1 of the Practice Room podcast, where we learned about composer and arranger Robert Chedville, who aims to make melodies with meaning. Please join us next Wednesday on episode 2 of the Practice Room podcast. Thank you, and as always, keep practicing.